Hello and welcome to Digital Anthropos. Today I will talk about remote work from my experience of implementing these ideas with more teams in several organizations that needed this type of arrangements because they had offices in more cities or in more countries, so they had these distributed teams, or they have different teams that were working on the same product, so they needed to synchronize in a way or another. So all these things are from my experience. Probably they don't always work. This is always the case with any tool or any practice like that, but I will present you what I know, and as always with any of these ideas you need to try them your own and experiment and see how it works for you. So let's get right onto it. It's about 7 tricks for remote work. First of all, you need to understand that remote work can be extremely effective. I know that many people consider that remote work is not that effective, and it's true because communication is not that easy. Typically we communicate face to face, or we need to see someone. This is how we are built. We're human beings who are used to being social, and of course face-to-face communication is the best option. But sometimes you cannot have that option, and because of distance or because certain situations you cannot have an office or everybody in an office. So then the second best scenario is having remote work. What I think I learned in the past years when I implemented these tools is that you need to start building the right foundation, and if you have the right foundation for remote work, then things will start working very well, and remote work will be extremely effective. Then the foundation is about some principles of remote work. First of all, it's very important to understand when you have meetings, when you have a time for discussing, and when you have the time for individual work time. When everybody's in an office, it's a lot easier to have a break or see if someone isn't at their desk, so you can ask them something. But when you're remote, you cannot do that. So a very good idea is to have this clear separation between meetings and individual work time. This is also effective when you're in the same office, but it's harder to do just because people don't like it that much. So in this way you won't fragment the day. If you would fragment the day with remote meetings, then everybody will stop losing their efficiency. With face-to-face meetings it's not that difficult, it's not that tiring, but with remote meetings it is a lot more tiring, especially for people who aren't used to working like that. Then you need to be very transparent about all your personal activities. So every team member needs to communicate more. We say that when you work remote, you need to over-communicate. So everything you've done, every small step you've done, every small impediment that you start having, you need to start communicating that to your team. And you either do that in tools like a chat, or in tools like ticketing systems, or you have short video meetings or short phone calls with colleagues, or just with few of your colleagues who are working on the same thing that you are. That also leads to another thing, that you need to update your progress immediately. Ideally you have a board or a ticketing system where you have the tasks, and immediately when you finish something, or when you started something, or when you started having impediments, note it there. It's very useful for everybody in the team to know what you have done and where they can start from, because sometimes activities are chained, so if you have done something, that means that someone else can start something, so it's extremely important. Another thing that's very useful in any case, but is extremely useful for remote work, is to focus on overall progress first, and then on your tasks. Sometimes if you help someone do something or unblock someone, that will unblock the overall progress. But if you just stay with your own tasks, then the overall progress won't be that great. So try to help others, try to unblock others first, and then see what you can do for your tasks. It's very important to track progress, as I mentioned. So a trick that I'm using is having times or specific times. In the beginning you need to note them, like every day at 11, 3, 5 and I don't know, something like that. You will have the time to track progress. So you need to start having these mechanisms to implement habits. After we talked about the principles, then we need some prerequisites. Very and most important thing is very good internet connection. Both in the office where you are, or at home, or in the other office, you need to have very good internet connection, because imagine if you have 20, 30, 40 video calls with HD webcams and with very good sound, your internet might go down, especially if you do updates, uploads and downloads of other things. You have maybe a cloud system where you upload data or software or whatever. So make sure your internet connection is very good. Then start working with tools that are effective for remote work. Video conferencing tools that everybody has and everybody knows how to use. I gave a few examples like Slack, Skype, Instagram, WhatsApp, Hangout, Zoom. There are so many of them. Each one of them is good in some way and not that good in another way, so it depends on what you need and also on security measures and so on. Sometimes organizations don't allow many tools just because of security reasons, so try to see what fits your organization. It's very good that everybody has an HD webcam so that you can see the other person like it's here. You can see their expression, their face. You can see what they are communicating more than what they are saying. So in this way we try to facilitate also non-verbal communication. We say that sound is a lot more important than video, and often it is, because you listen more than you look at the other, so that's why you need very good microphones. Any microphone embedded in a laptop, in a tablet, in a phone is just bad. So you either have a headset or you buy cheap USB microphones like $10-15 that are really good for this type of conferencing. The type of microphones that sometimes beginners use for podcasts. Also headsets sometimes are very good for video and for audio, because you don't want to have your audio on a loudspeaker. Sometimes the sound will go bad and you'll start having feedback. So always use a headset when talking on a video conference, and also always use an external microphone. Sometimes some headsets have good microphones embedded, so if you just buy a high quality headset with microphone, then that will be just great. Typically the ones that the call centers use are just very good for any conference like that. Then you need work management tools. Work management means that you'll track your tasks, your progress, your impediments. And I gave some examples like Trello, Jira, Pivotal Tracker, version 1. There's so many of them, probably 100 tools like that at least. Choose the one that's best for you. Try to have tools that are more visual than just text, and use visual boards, so the these boards that aggregate all the data in those management tools that you'll be able to see the whole progress at an instance. Then you have document management tools like Google Drive, Amazon Cloud, Azure Cloud, and so on. Places where you can have your documents, where you can work together easily on documents. It's not that nice to have a document in a local Word file so that nobody can use. So that's why it's very important to have shared documents when you work remote. Sometimes when we worked on these documents, somebody will write one section, somebody another section. So in half an hour, 3 or 4 people would be able to write the full document, rather than me writing a part of it and you writing the next one, so it will take a day. So the time to finish it's a lot faster. Before starting into expressing the 7 tricks of remote work, I want to say that, again, that some won't work for you. Think first if they work for you, then experiment. Try to take each one of them as an experiment and see how it goes. Then adjust them if the experiment doesn't go well. Experiment again. Maybe just the context wasn't good, or you need to adjust them a bit. And constantly reflect if they help you. Maybe after a while, some of these tricks won't help you that much because you're not in a context where they will. First of all, the first tool I'd like to talk about is Remote Peer. This is extremely useful when you have a team divided in more geographical places and you have the following. So let's say you have a 10-person team and you have 5 and 5 people. Then each one of those people has a remote peer. Instead of everybody going to the boss, the manager, the team leader, the scrum master, whatever you have, you'd have communication one by one with someone on the other side. So you need to choose a person in which of the other places as a close contact. And you have this kind of contract with that person. This is a communication contract. This is what I typically try to implement, that you need to answer in maximum 5 minutes at any request on the communication channel that you agreed on. That means it's either a question or an answer that's very clear, or something like, I'm busy now, I'll talk in, I don't know, 30 minutes or 1 hour, or I'll be back immediately and we'll talk about this. You can use more than one communication channel depending on urgency. So try to use communication channels and identify their priority. Let's say, first of all, you have a Slack where you have the whole team discussing, and you just grab your peer, get a direct message and ask whatever you need to ask. If they aren't answering on Slack, then you are allowed to go on WhatsApp, and only after that you'll make a phone call if it's extremely urgent. So these are the tools that I typically recommend like that, but of course choose the tools that are available and appropriate for you. You need also to define a working program with your peer. So you'd know that I work from 9 to 5, and outside of this program I won't call you on your phone, or I won't bug you on WhatsApp about whatever I'm having as an issue. If I'm not in the office, I need to communicate that to my peer. I need to make sure my peer knows my holiday, so I think I can choose another peer for a while, and so on. So always communicate upfront very clearly about everybody's schedule. First was Remote Peer, then it's Team Calendar. After Team Calendar, about Team Calendar, you need to understand that it's extremely useful, and I don't see it implemented that often. I think it works for any type of team, either remote or local, and typically you don't have a team calendar, you have just people's calendars. But it's a lot more effective to have a team calendar with all the common activities and also with all the personal activities, because you can see if someone's available or not, and you can pick them when they are available. The time to choose a date and an hour for a meeting diminishes significantly, so all the overhead will be less and it will be a lot more pleasant for the team to work. You have some rules, like when think about not fragmenting the day. So you need to remember about the other principle of a meeting slot and a work slot. Let's say you have 4 hours in the morning for meetings and 4 hours in the afternoon just for work. That means anything you put in the calendar will be just in the morning and nothing will be allowed in the afternoon. Also, with a team calendar you can impose that because nobody can add meetings, and probably only exceptions would be there if the whole organization has a meeting or something like that with top management, or if you want to have something like a whole day of something, of course, of a team retreat or a demo for your product. Of course, these will be exceptions, but otherwise you don't need to have something like that. Take into account that when you add things in the calendar, you need to have some breaks in between activities. You need to have at least 15 minutes of break to let your brain switch from one activity to another. Otherwise, meetings start becoming extremely ineffective. I like to add reminders for each event, and you need to have a fixed time. So the smart calendars do that automatically. For any event anybody adds, you can put types of notifications, so that will work just great. And again, another habit that you can implement is that every team member would look at the team calendar in the morning and see what they need to do in that day. The third trick is a task board. The simplest one is something like to do, doing, done that we use in Kanban or a Scrum board, and it's extremely useful to see what everybody is doing. Of course, with the condition that everybody updates immediately when they change the status of their task, and you have a very good idea of what's going on now. You can use a paper board on the wall in the office. So I've seen this work very well without remote tools. Just a paper board with the camera, sometimes with a webcam that's always connected. This happens typically when you have team divided in two, but in the office you have more people, and abroad or home or working in another office you have fewer people. So in the place where you have more people, you have the visual board, the physical board, and then your peer will change your status on there, and otherwise you can just see it with the webcam that's always there. There's a big advantage in physical boards because you can see things, you can touch things, you can see them immediately, while in tools like Jira or Trello or things like that, typically people try to look at their own tasks and forget about the big view of their activities. And that's bad, because instead of helping others do their work better or unblocking others, you just do your own tasks, and that means that the overall progress won't be that great. On a task board, anyone can view, add and remove tasks. All tasks should have only one responsible, who should update the status immediately when things are changed, and you should define also task types so that you have a very clear idea sometimes with a different color. So what task types you have, because some of them are typically longer, so maintenance can be a few days, but writing something can be a few hours, reviewing something can be tens of minutes. So you start having these types of work that help you understand if something needs to go faster or slower. Let's say you have a review task that typically needs to take tens of minutes, but you see there in a review on the board that the review task has been there for a few days and something's clearly wrong, so someone didn't say that they're blocked about it. This is how task types help you very much. Then let's go into these two types of work: team individual work and meeting time. During team individual work, ideally you have at least half a day, either in the morning or in the afternoon, where there aren't any meetings. And when I say there aren't any meetings, I say not meetings in the team. Of course, the team members can meet, they can work in smaller groups or in the whole team. It doesn't matter, it's their choice. But you're not allowed from the outside to put any meetings to the team. And if the whole team decides now we need to discuss about something that's urgent, of course they will. But these are impromptu meetings. These aren't planned team meetings like a daily or a retrospective or a demo meeting or something like that. The team needs to use the defined communication channels when they do individual work, and that's all, I guess, for how they communicate. A very good idea and a very good tool tip that I try to use is to close email or even these chats when you're working if you need focus. So if you have a Slack for the team, you can say, team, I'm gonna close my Slack for 1 hour because I need to focus on this. Close everything, close Facebook, email, everything, and start working. You'll finish some stuff, you'll get things done a lot faster than otherwise. Then you have meeting time. You need to define when the meeting time happens, and all the meetings will be in this period for anything. Individual work can still be done, but think that what will be done will be fragmented. So don't take complicated tasks that will be prone to this switching. Take simpler tasks that you can take, but things that can be interrupted after 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. You need to define the meetings during this period with a clear purpose, the right attendees, materials to read, how you can prepare before the meeting. And always prepare. So read that, understand it, maybe ask questions on the channels, on the chats or on the phone or whatever before the meeting, so that you know what this is about and you can continue in a very effective manner. Always take 15 minutes break in between the meetings. Don't have meetings back to back. You need to go to the toilet, have a coffee, get some water, get a fruit, but also in between that, when you go to the coffee machine and get a coffee, your brain will slowly get out of the state from the initial meeting and will continue with the state for the next meeting. So it's very important that you take this time of switch in between meetings. The sixth trick is log in and log out. On your preferred channel, let's say you use Slack, it's a very good idea to say when you come to the office, so even though if you're remote, think that instead of saying hello physically to your colleagues from the desks in your office, you just say hello, I logged in. So hello everybody, However you want to formulate that, you just state that now you are available for everybody. So I would say something like Adi, I logged in, and the same with logout when you leave the office. Log in and log out would be in the morning, after a lunch break, or after a longer break, or after a very long meeting, so that people know that you aren't now there. Again, this is an idea that you need to over communicate. Typically you don't do that, right? You don't tell all your colleagues, hey, I'm going to a very long meeting. Maybe it's a good idea, but it doesn't happen that often. Here it's very important because people don't see you, that you're not at your physical desk as you'd be in a physical office near you, so they don't know if you are remote or not. Try to do that. Try to say, I'm leaving after a while. Let's say you have an appointment for a bank, or you need to go somewhere. Say, I will be out for 2 hours, for 3 hours, and log out. Again, when you come back, you say log in, and whenever you are logged in, respect the communication contract with your colleagues. The communication contract that we discussed when we talked about the remote peer. When someone is logged out, you can use second and third communication channels for emergencies. So if your first one is Slack, you can either use WhatsApp or phone call as a second and third communication channel. So if there's an emergency, use those in that order. And again, if that person didn't answer in 5 minutes, you start calling them. The seventh trick that maybe people wouldn't expect to be here is continuous improvement. It is important, extremely important, to always take your time and reflect about your remote work. Individually, so how I like it, how I work in this way, what is annoying, what is good. Try to come with solutions, with options of improving the current state. But also in a team, so do a retrospective with a team about the remote work that you're doing, and try to discuss open what's good, what you don't like, and come up with solutions. There are always these small tweaks that you can have with times, like when you start working, when you have the meeting time, when you have the individual work time, how the communication contracting between the colleagues happens, what are the tools you use, what channels you use, and so on. So these are all for debate, and they need debate until everybody is happy with it from the team. It's a very bad way to get stuck with an annoying way of working just because your boss said you should work like that. It's not effective for anyone, it's not something you'd like, so start talking about what you don't like, start talking about what you like, and try to come up with solutions. Don't blame others, don't blame tools. Tools are just to help you. If they're not helping you, change the tools. And all the improvement ideas should be focused on the future. Don't try to think that it was awful. Okay, it was awful, but what can we do now? It's not useful to think about the past in this way because you won't be able to change the past. But what you can do is take measures to have a better future. I will tell you some effective remote team patterns, and I have 3 categories. First of all, the first one is focused on flow. Focus on removing impediments and blockages. Don't focus on yourself. Don't be egotistic about things you do. Try to think in a bigger picture of the whole team, of the product that you're now creating. Think, what can I do to deliver sooner, not what can I do to finish my own task. The second pattern is that the team is engaged, feels that everybody is on board and they are having fun together. If you have this communication in a very natural way for everybody, people will feel like they belong, feel like that everybody is there. If everybody answers fast and they help each other, then it will be just great. And this kind of team can work remotely the same way, in a very good way, as a team that works in the same office. And third pattern is teams that have the same values, the same common values like simplicity. Try to have the simplest communication patterns possible, the simplest rules possible, just few meetings as possible, very easy to understand what's going on there. With fewer rules, things happen easier, with the condition that everybody is engaged. Then feedback. With feedback, you start having this type of environment. If everybody is open to feedback, if everybody can give and take feedback, then the whole environment will change slowly towards something that's really powerful, engaging for everybody, and fun. Of course, in the beginning it won't be like that, but if you have the openness to have this feedback culture, things will be extremely nice. And this is about courage. So the courage to open tough topics is very important when we talk about remote teams. Quite often, even with teams that just work together in an office, but courage is very important to have this continuous improvement attitude. Don't think that there are taboo topics like we need to use this tool, our boss told us to do that. Everything can be changed. If you want to, you will be able to change it. Some concerns that I observed when implementing this way of working is that, first of all, remote team members never met each other. It's kind of difficult to work with someone, to connect with someone that you have never met. So for that, what I tried to help with was try to get together at least once or 2 times per year. Try to get all the team together somehow, somewhere, so that they can meet each other, and you will see immediately it will be a spark of collaboration in a remote way. After some people spent some time, had some food, had some drinks together, they talked about their interests, their families, their ways, their values. So it is extremely powerful. Even though it could seem costly to bring everybody in a place for a few days, I think the overall it helps a lot with productivity. And I think it's not a cost, it's just an investment in the overall productivity of your team. Another concern is using only remote people without showing the bigger picture. Not having that board, that idea of what we're working on, what's the product or the service that we are delivering. If you just use remote people without thinking that they should be a team, but they're just individuals, this won't be that effective. And probably you'll change a lot of these individuals, but overall you won't have a team. So productivity wise, it won't be that great. It will be frustrating for the people, and I really don't recommend it. Consider that remote is cheap, so there can be bad tools and practices. This is another concern. Okay, they're just there, let them work. They don't need video conference, an HD camera is too expensive, we can't afford good microphones, why does everybody need a laptop? Things like that. Remote isn't necessarily cheap, maybe it is cheaper, but if you implement remote in a bad way, it can be a lot worse than working in an office. So you might be better off just hiring someone in an office, because let's be honest, work and knowledge work is costly and salaries can be kind of big in some industries, so it's important to know that it's not cheap to work remotely, especially in a bad way. And the last concern is no attention to remote team members' needs because they aren't here. It's a lot harder to do management with remote people. So this is again a reason to meet with them, maybe once or 2 times per year, to meet them, to understand everybody, what they are about, and then I guess things start moving and people start being more open and they start expressing better their needs. A culture where you have openness, where you have open feedback, where courage is something that everybody tends to do is very important, so that team members express their needs. But all these things need to come from management. And at the end, I want to express a few advices that I implemented in more organization. First advice, always start from the team's needs and not from the available tools. Try to create the environment based on the team values, the team's needs, and then choose the tools that are appropriate for them. Experiment a few tools, try to see if they work, and then if the team says yes, this is the right tool, then start implementing it. Start throwing it away for everybody. If it's not good, then change the tool. It's a lot cheaper like that. To have remote working effectively, it's a lot more expensive than changing a tool like I don't know, document tool or a management tool or a video conferencing tool. Second advice, encourage open communication and feedback. Even though it's a lot more difficult to have open communication in a remote way, if you start having video conferences, if you start having ways of feedback, if you start having retrospectives that really come with solutions that are implemented and they're not just a way to complain about things, but people really feel that things are improving, then you'll start having open communication and feedback. Third advice, security. Take care that all the communication is secured. Make sure that people don't use other channels than the ones that you talked about. There were cases with organizations that they get fined because they used other communication channels than the ones that they needed to. So because of GDPR especially, this shouldn't happen. So this is why you need to explain what channels you use, why you cannot use certain tools because of security reasons, and then make sure the tools that you have are secured over lines that are secured, and you don't have breaches or even some information stolen out from there. Fourth advice is ensure tools for progress recording, like the task boards, the documentation tool. They should exist and they should work. At the beginning, when you start implementing them, try to make sure that people know how to use them. Fifth advice, organize regular face-to-face events for remote teams. This is what I talked about many times today. At least once or 2 times per year, try to put everybody together and then try to show them that things can happen in a remote way, and try to show that everybody is a person on the other side of that video call or the other side of the chat, and everybody has some certain needs and values, so that you start having this idea of a group. That was all. Here you can find what I do. I have a blog, a YouTube channel for technical topics, the Digital Anthropos YouTube channel, Think Design Work Smart YouTube channel from Mosaic Works. You can find me on Twitter, this is my work email, and of course on my blog. So thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to be a human in this digital age.